Hello. The White House Rose Garden is a reception area for, well, kings and princes and press who like to think of themselves as kings and princes and all the rest of it when the weather's good. So, that being the case, it's quite an important part of the White House. And recently, Melania Trump refurbished it. Now, according to various reports I've read, it had to be refurbished because there was a drainage problem. And obviously, taking advice, Trump also thought that maybe the trees were getting in the way of the cameras and that sort of thing, because she cleaned the thing out. And, well, yes, it does look a little bit starker now than it used to. But quite frankly, I think the earlier version was a mess as well. Here's a before and after. Now, we also have to remember that these were taken at different times of the year. This is not a flowering time of the year. That's why you can dig it up. You don't dig gardens up in the spring. And so all those nice photos showing all those tulips all over the place, they showed the rose garden in springtime. And now, of course, those seasons are over. It's going to look less colourful anyway. So some of the criticisms are grotesquely unfair, and obviously from people who spent their whole lives 6 floors up in apartments and don't know anything about planting gardens. Right. But this has drawn to my attention the sort of stuff that goes on with First Ladies, and I wanted to remind you of some of them. The First Lady is in a slightly awkward position. If she does too much, then she's interfering, and if she does too little, then, well, she'd be criticised for not involving herself. And that's because the First Lady has a particular sort of role which doesn't appear to be codified in law, but is a semi-regal position. The wife, it's always been the wife so far, of the president can stand in for the president at ceremonies and things, just like the spouse of the monarch could do that over here in the United Kingdom. So let's go back a bit to the idea of royalty. When a king takes a wife, she's usually, unless there's a specific reason for this not to happen, she's usually called Queen whatever. But when a queen takes a husband, he doesn't get called king. He might be called prince, he usually is, but that's one rank down. And that's because we may not like this, but we still have a deep-seated idea, and it's politically incorrect, and sooner or later it might change. But right now, we still have something of the feeling that the woman is under the control of the man. So in the case of kings and queens, if the man has the same technical rank as the woman, he's going to outrank her simply because the man, being a man, gives him extra stripes or whatever. And it seems to me that that situation is worse in America than it is in Britain. In Britain, I don't know how many politicians got into power, female politicians rather, that got into power because they were married to a male politician. That wouldn't be considered very nice round here. So anyway, let's get back to the First Lady, and she's in an awkward position. She can't be interfering too much, and on the other hand, she can't be seen to be, I don't know what, hanging around eating chocolates and filing her nails. And so she has to find a happy medium, and how that happy medium is perceived seems to me to be largely how the press perceive her husband. But as I said, there's more of a royal position for a first lady. And so I'm just going to talk about a few kings' wives. Let's start with Marie Antoinette. She was the wife of the unpopular King Louis XVI and was subjected to a long campaign of bad publicity, which included extravagance and sexual immorality before the revolution. And then afterwards, when the Revolutionary Council had arrested her and put her and her whole family on trial, she was accused of having an incestuous relationship with one of her sons. Because, just being sexually immoral wasn't enough, since everybody in France was questionable. Well, not everybody, but you see what I mean. So they had to make it worse. Incest was what they tasked her with. Now, Alexandra Feodorovna, who was the wife of the unpopular Tsar Nicholas II, was accused of, political intrigue with Germany. She was a German princess, and of having a sexual relationship with a monk. You see, again, just an ordinary infidelity wasn't enough. It had to be with somebody who had taken holy orders. Now, Catherine de' Medici was a regent for her unpopular sons, and she herself was not accused of sexual promiscuity, but she was accused of surrounding herself with sexually promiscuous ladies-in-waiting whom she was supposedly pimping out to various ambassadors and visiting potentates. You see, she was a regent, which means she was a virtual monarch, a sort of second-hand monarch. So she was accused of virtual promiscuity, second-hand promiscuity. The ladies did the actual promiscuizing. I made up a word there. Anyway, you can see the pattern. The thing that really bothered people in the times I was talking about was sex, but sex of a certain sort. So they got at the king by implying that he couldn't control his wife, or that there was no male control in the case of the sons of their mother. And so she was acting in a way that contravened the rules of sexual probity. I mean, this goes all the way back, and I thought, how far back can I go? Well, there was King Ahab, who married Jezebel, a daughter of a Phoenician king. And since what exercised the Blue Noses at the time was the fight between the monotheistic God of the Hebrews, although it was monolatry more than monotheism, but that's a technical thing, and the idols of the surrounding cultures, Jezebel was accused of bringing idols into Judea and of sexual deviancy. She was supposed to hold orgies. Now, but that's in the old days, you say. Well, they tried that with Melania Trump as well. Does anyone remember the T.I. video? If you haven't seen it, I shall explain. T.I. is an artist of some sort, and he made a video with his latest track in which it appeared that Melania Trump was having an affair with him and doing a seductive strip in the Oval Office while Trump was away. It didn't really work. But I think it didn't work, not because of the howls of outrage from Trump supporters and even some non-Trump supporters. There were howls of outrage, to be fair. who felt a great deal of distaste at the crudity of that image. But my suspicion about the lack of more appetite for it was that TI was showing an incidence of sexual infidelity in the Oval Office, which might have served as a reminder of another incidence of sexual infidelity at the Oval Office desk, which really did happen.
I did not have sexual
So, moving on swiftly, the glitterati have decided instead that what's really, really wrong with Melania Trump is that she has no taste. Oh, and also that she's a foreigner. Kurtzeichenwald, who has been a senior writer at the New York Times, described by somebody, his name's just escaped me, he's on the Daily Wire, described as a former newspaper, wrote as follows: "I find it unbelievable that FLOTUS, who has only been a citizen since the middle of Bush's second term, had the audacity to wreck the Rose Garden." Okay, so apart from the fact that he's using the word only wrongly there, who has, what he should have said was, and he's supposed to be a writer, who has been a citizen only since the middle of Bush's second term. And this is a guy who probably, I suppose, will be fighting for the rights of illegal immigrants who've been here a lot less than that, but that's another matter. He is saying she's a foreigner and has no rights in this country. Well, at least she's a legal foreigner. Had the audacity to wreck the Rose Garden, and then he said, "These trashy, evil, stupid people need to get out of our house." What goal she has! How very dare she! What a disgrace to say something like that. Now, he did make a mealy-mouthed apology afterwards, but the fact is, we know he meant it. And a lot of others agree with him. It's just pure snobbery. And think of that fuss about the White House decorations, and I'm going to show you a couple of pictures. The Trump's White House decorations last Christmas were described as creepy. This is what one particular set of them really did look like. And this is what the press made of them. And there were others with some rather disturbing images in as well. Oh, just to add some perspective here, this is what the Obamas did. This hall of weird snowmen, quite honestly, I would hesitate to take an impressionable 3-year-old down that corridor. And everybody said, "Oh, how marvellous. There's another even creepier one. Look at this." The press thought it was marvellous, darling. And there you have it. Now, here's the White House Rose Garden before, and I honestly do think it's a bit of a mess. And here it is after. And as I said, a little bit stark and minimalistic, but most of the people who were criticising this would go for stark and minimalistic, given half a chance, and it hasn't matured yet. And it's been made wheelchair accessible, which is important, because disabled people come to visit the White House, and they do go to the Rose Garden, don't they? And also the fact that the trees are down, and they may have been moved elsewhere. I don't know if they were destroyed. They were really obscuring the view for visitors and cameras. And so I think that the upgrade is better myself. But the press won't have any of it, will they? It's just because Donald Trump's wife did it. So not only can she not do right for wrong, but she is guilty of the worst thing they can throw at her, bad taste. Just like the establishment cooked up those accusations of the other ladies, with which to hit not the ladies themselves, but the boss that they could get at through insulting their wives. There's something else I have to point out, though. In every case I mentioned in that list, the jibes at what you would call the first ladies, they happened just before a revolution. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.